Hello. So that is my super cheesy Ryan Murphy promo because I figured it's Ryan Murphy. So what better way to honor Ryan Murphy than with something super cheeseball, totally in the realm of almost every show he does. Wink, wink. Uh,
Very
but
upbeat and bouncy and bubbly.
I know, not like most of the things that we are covering, but hey, figured I'd go the opposite. At first, I had it scored to this very dramatic music, and then I'm like, nope, I'm going to go the opposite. So that will be coming soon. You'll be hearing more about that at the end of the show. So, hello, welcome. We are talking about Office Space tonight. I'm very excited. This is part of the third part of our 4-part discussion about movies that became cult classics or were underappreciated, and we're going to be covering them. Like I've said last week, this is going to become an annual thing. So every April is going to be divided between 4 movies and then 4 Ryan Murphy things. So April is going to be a fun and interesting month. And I'm very excited because, spoiler alert, one of the movies we are covering next year is Heathers. So I am very excited. I have a feeling there are going to be about 10 alternates on that episode because every time I mention it, at least 2 people get excited. So that will be next year, and then a couple of others that I have planned too. But before we get into Office Space, and me also, like I've been introducing all of them with some trivia and some facts and, like budget and what it made. Just a quick reminder that we are on Patreon, and I finally released our first American Horror Story. 3 hours and 2 minutes is the running time of that special bonus episode where we cover seasons 1 and 2. That's why it took me forever. So soon, I've already started rewatching season 3. So soon in May, we're going to be recording season 3 and season 4. So look for that. So if you want to follow along on our journey, and then also coming in June or July, we will be releasing one covering a Destiel fanfic. So if you want to hear those exclusive episodes, you have to become a Patreon supporter for as little as $3 a month. So head on over to the link on our new website. It's a fandomthingpod.com. Click on the support us and go there. Or you can buy some more merch that we have too, including It's a Destiel thing. So head on over there with our new logo that I love so dang much. I can't even tell you how much I love our new logo and our new website. I'm just beyond the moon about it. Okay, so I'm going to go around and have my panelists introduce themselves and tell me one thing you're into right now. I was trying to do the alphabet in my head there. I'm like, who am I starting with? Meg!
Me!
Meg, what are you into right now?
First, so I was torn about what I was going to talk about, but one will just make me angry. Right now, I'm super into Our Flag Means Death, as is, I feel like, everybody except Aaron, because Aaron is busy watching everything else.
I haven't watched it either. Sorry.
Oh,
except for me and Paula.
It's so good. And it's been really interesting to actually watch the conversations that are happening. And it's been kind of heartbreaking, if I'm being perfectly honest, to watch so many friends of mine who are LGBTQ watching it and being so apprehensive and so afraid to hope that they weren't being queer baited again. And then even if they know exactly what's going to be going on, to have that, to still not believe it, I was like, oh, that just makes me so sad. And then it's so happy when, yes, gay pirates, Bex turned me on to it. So. But it's really good. And yeah,
that is sad. That's very, very sad. Yes,
it was heartbreaking to people, to see people, like, there's non-binary representation. There's a lot of representation in there, and to see people be so excited that they can see themselves on screen because it's so rare for them to be able to see themselves. And then B, wait for the other shoe to drop while they're watching, because they've been conditioned for so long to be waiting for the bait and switch. And so, but it's so happy. It's so fun. And Taika Waititi is like, even with the beard, I don't like beards, but he is a handsome man.
Funny, yeah. That's been all anyone has been talking about on my Twitter line. So yeah. So Paula, I know that's not what you're into because, like me, you haven't watched it yet either. But what are you into?
I have been listening to an audiobook. Val Kilmer wrote a memoir called I'm Your Huckleberry, and I've been listening to that recently. It's really good. So
I've got to listen to that before November.
Yes.
Paula and I are going to be talking about Val Kilmer in November for my birthday.
I'm very excited.
So, I am too. I'm very excited. I'm really excited to rewatch some of his movies, especially The Doors and Tombstone and
Iceman.
Yes, and the volleyball scene.
Yes,
the volleyball scene.
Are you gonna watch A Ghost in the Darkness?
Yes.
That's like, I was obsessed with that movie.
Plus, because of all of the stuff that went on behind the scenes of that movie.
So much. I actually saw the lions that are on display in the Field Museum last weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they look pretty raggedy now.
They're kind of gnarly now.
I mean, they were pretty like diseased as it was.
Well, and the thing too is, before they ended up to the Field Museum, or at the Field Museum, I talk good English.
I make good words.
They when they were originally killed, I think the person that killed them took them and made them rugs.
Michael Douglas.
Sure. And so when they had to, like, they then took those rugs and then taxidermied them into the displays for the museum. So they were really gnarly to begin with.
Yeah. Well, and they were sick. Like, the reason they were hunting those people is because I think, like, there's an abscessed tooth or something, an issue. They were sick, and human beings are just so easy to hunt.
Yeah.
We're very squishy and we don't run fast.
Yeah, we're actually not at the top of the food chain.
Anyway, I didn't mean to hijack your Val Kilmer. I just love A Ghost in the Darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that one. And, you know, as you all know, I always root for animals no matter what. I mean, I root for Cujo. So, so Tanya, are you into Our Flag Means Death, or is it something else?
I am very into this show. But I will, because Meg had to, I always go last and have to have like answer and backup answer. I do love it. I think it's great. It's very fun. I've been trying to get everyone to watch it. I'm working on a Steed cosplay because I think, you know, that's who I am sort of as a person, despite like in my head, I think I'm Blackbeard, but I know I'm Steed. Like much more, you know, you're like, I wish I was like this. No, I'm not. I'm really like
I feel like I'm Black Pete. It's just really not really.
They're fun. They're all fun. But I'm gonna say I finally got to go see the Batman the other day or a week ago or so, which was 3 hours. It didn't need to be 3 hours. You know, we could have like cut out about half of the scenes of him just like looking at things. But it was better than I expected. So I enjoyed it. It was fun. I don't know if I'd say I'm like ridiculously into it, but the only beef I really had with it was the Penguin. I didn't love the way the Penguin was portrayed. Because I think I'm kind of always associating Penguin with Gotham, and I think that actor did such a good job in Gotham. And also Penguin to me always needs to be sort of trying to be elite or wealthy or kind of upper crust class. And this Penguin was not portrayed that way at all. So it was, I don't know, it didn't work. That didn't work for me, but, you know, love our Pats did a just fine job. Not too much of a transition from creepy, broody vampire to creepy, broody, billionaire. So worked out.
Well, I haven't seen it yet. As everybody knows, I love Batman. I don't care what
Sorry.
anybody says. That's my favorite. I don't care. Everybody rags on Batman, but I love Batman so much. That's my favorite superhero. My favorite actually though is Catwoman. But I love Batman so dang much. And I am excited to see it because I've heard so many great things about it from people who love Batman and have said it's actually maybe even better than the Dark Knight trilogy. And so I'll be curious to see if he tops Christian Bale for me, which will be very hard, but I'll see.
I mean,
There were
nobody
so many jokes
tops
I could make in
Christian
that.
Bale. I was gonna say he's definitely not the top of that. If that were something we wanted to talk about, but it is good. I will say it's good visually. It's amazing. Go see it on a giant screen with good sound. Okay,
Well, I'll
I'll be
probably
quiet
end
now.
just watching on HBO, sadly, but so yeah, I think this is your cosplay. Beck says to definitely do it, Tanya. Uh, but what I'm into is in the realm of true crime on Hulu. There's a series that just started called The Girl from Plainview, which is all about Michelle Carter, who was the teenager who texted her boyfriend and encouraged him to kill himself. And that was Conrad Roy. Excuse me. And Elle Fanning plays Michelle Carter. And I also want to point out Chloe Sevigny, who plays Conrad's mom, who is just amazing. And she deserves so much more respect than I think she sometimes gets. So I just always want to point her out when she's in something. But I think it's interesting. I don't know if I'll end up finishing it while it's going on or 10 years down the road because it's me. But I liked it. I liked it when I started it. So yeah. So once again, that's on Hulu. And Hulu is just making this space for doing all this true crime, because they're doing the drop and all that, the dropout, and all that stuff too. So, okay. So we're going to talk about Office Space. First, I have some facts and some trivia for you. Office Space was released on February 19th, 1999. It was written and directed by Mike Judge. It's loosely based on the Milton comic that he also did. And of course, Mike Judge is also known for Beavis and Butthead and all of those back in that time. The budget was $10 million. It grossed $10,828,256, which may sound like a lot to you, but it's actually a flop. But compared to Empire Records is the least successful of all the ones we have done in here because Empire Records didn't even crack 1 million, didn't even crack 500,000. So that's the biggest failure of all of these. But this is still a failure, considered a failure, but it's a cult classic now. It's a cult hit. Stars Ron Livingston, of course. And all of these people, except for Jennifer Aniston, weren't really known back then. And the reason Jennifer Aniston was cast is because the studio wanted at least one well-known person. In fact, they wanted Matt Damon, which I'm so glad Mike Judge got his way on this. They wanted Matt Damon to play the lead in this, which no. So I'm glad Mike Judge won. And so Ron Livingston, David Herman, Ajay Naidu, Jennifer Aniston, Gary Cole, Stephen Root, Diedrich Bader, and Orlando Jones in one of his first roles as Steve, the magazine salesperson. So a couple of trivia facts. The iconic red stapler coveted by Milton was created for the film by the prop department because they needed a bright color, red, that would show up on camera. Swingline had actually discontinued red staplers, but because of this film, they got so many people wanting them that they started selling them again. The PC load letter scene was not scripted. David Herman had more lines to say to Ron Livingston, but he was interrupted by the photocopier actually jamming, and he did not understand the words on there, so that the error message meant. Milton was based on a former co-worker that Mike Judge had worked with during his days as an engineer. The co-worker had begun talking one day about how he was going to quit his job because he had been forced to move his desk around too many times. One of the promotions for this film invited people in certain cities to watch and participate in the bashing of office equipment. There was also an internet campaign that linked to a website where people could expose their bad bosses. I was tempted to do something like that to promote this episode, but I decided not to do it. I should have, but I didn't. Orlando Jones said that he based his character on his little niece who would sell Girl Scout cookies door to door with a poor attitude. As of October 2018, the term ass clown was officially entered in Webster's dictionary, crediting writer Mike Judge for first using it in Office Space. After poor box office performance, the movie gained cult status on video, and Mike Judge has said that more people talked to him about this movie than any project he has ever worked on. Judge was offered a chance to make a sequel. Thank God this didn't happen. Office Space 2, still renting. Judge said that because he had been through enough anguish over the first one, he didn't want to put himself through the experience again. So, yes, and there is actually a Funny or Die video where Michael Bolton appears, where he's digitally inserted into several scenes from the movie, and he ad-libbed, he changed the line to say an extremely talented ass clown. So I think it's funny that he was able to sort of laugh at himself. So, yes, and there's a bunch of other trivia. Definitely look it up. Like I said, I mean, that they wanted Matt Damon, which is just, as Peter, which is just ridiculous. Because Mike Judge said this person should not have star power, star energy. And I mean, I love Ron Livingston so much. And I don't think this film would work without Ron Livingston. And Matt Damon would have been just awful in this role. Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson auditioned for the role of Lawrence, while Kate Hudson was considered to play Joanna. Okay, so let's start talking about Office Space. And I know some of these questions are going to be hard to answer, and feel free in the chat to also give your answers to them as well. So you just saw that the actor who plays Izzy Hands is also in the Batman. Huh. And damn Ron Livingston's eyebrows, though. He has amazing eyebrows. Yes, where is Carla? That's a good question. Where are you, Carla? So we're going to start. I want to know what 3 of your favorite scenes or lines are, Meg. And I know this is a hard question, but
it is. And I'm like first. So I normally have like a whole bunch to whittle away. But I gotta say, one of my favorites, and it's not like a big thing or anything like that, but one of my favorite lines is when Peter goes home and Lawrence hears him through the wall and comes inside, and Peter's just like, you ever go into work on a Monday and you're just kind of not feeling great, and someone says, so sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays, and Diedrich Bader plays this perfectly, and he's like, no, shit, no. Like, he gets very visibly like affronted and upset that anyone would do that. And it's just, it makes it so funny to me, because he's just like, because it's true. What kind of psychopath does that? Like, it's Monday. Of course we don't want to be at work. And that's just one of my little favorite bits. Anything with the Bobs, if I'm being completely honest. But the line I probably still use most from this, because my dad's name is Bob. Or the response is when they're like, it looks like you've been missing a lot of work, Peter. It's just like, I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob. And like, these are just favorite little lines. I hated this movie the first time I saw it. I was 14, so I had zero reference to what is basically a documentary.
Yes, it is a documentary
about working in an office and working in a restaurant. And then another one. I have a bunch of them, but I'm trying to think of like, what's my favorite? The jump to conclusions, Matt. That whole thing is so stupid. And it's like, he knows it's stupid. He's fully aware that the jump to conclusions, man, he compares it to Pet Rock, which the fact that man made that money with a rock is brilliant, in my opinion. But when he's just like, he's in a full body cast and he's like, just keep going, and one day you can be as lucky as I am. To get him. But there's so many. But I don't want to take them, so I will.
Yeah, and they actually fans made an actual jump to conclusions board. So there is a fan jump to conclusions, which I would love to get that. And the scenes where he's in the full body cast were the first things he shot, and they didn't have anyone to do that, so they had to hire like an EMT to come and put him in a full body cast and then take it out. So,
oh my god, that poor man!
I know.
But yeah, like that, and of course beating the shit out of the the fax
Well,
machine
yes,
is iconic.
Yes.
Like all of the musical cues are amazing, I think. Anyway, I'm
Yeah,
gonna shut up
I
now.
So Beck said my husband wouldn't watch it for years because he was a bartender at TGI Fridays, and everyone told him he had to watch it. When we started dating, he finally watched it. Well, let me know what he thought of it, Bex, in the comments. So Paula, what are 3 of your favorites?
Yeah. Like you said, there are so many great scenes. I just watched this again last night, and it's still relatable. I've never really worked in an office setting, so I didn't watch this film when it first came out, because I didn't think, it's not going to be relatable. But this is kind of my go-to film when I am super stressed, and there's 2 scenes in particular that I love. And if nothing else, I just watch these. The opening scene with the traffic, especially Samir beating the crap out of his steering wheel and cussing, cracks me up every time because we've all been there. And the beating the copier machine, because who doesn't want to just beat the crap out of a copier machine with a baseball bat sometime?
Well, and if you're
Yes.
not, if you didn't live through it, it's really hard to understand just how busted and like, did you see the computers?
Oh God, that takes me back.
know.
They
What-
had floppy disks.
I know,
And when
and
he's
I'm like,
playing Tetris
I'm like,
too.
oh my God. It's like, I
Like
think
those things lasted forever, but the maintenance was intense.
yeah. Well, and the great thing about this movie though is even though I never worked in an office setting like that, all of those character types and all of those just ridiculous things that they're making fun of are still relatable no matter what job you have.
Mhm.
So, but the other one is one of my favorite lines is just Lumberg just comes around, that'd be great.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, there's just it was hard to pick.
Yeah,
There's
it's
just so
hard.
many, it's one of those with the case of the monies. It's one that nobody says that except when we're doing it sarcastically because we're quoting the movie and we do it to each other because of that.
Yeah.
That's the only time it's acceptable.
Yeah, because you have to say it
Exactly.
in that very exact tone. Otherwise, you
Mhm.
sound like a crazy person.
Yeah.
I mean, if the person you're saying it to hasn't seen the movie, you sound like a crazy person no matter what.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. So he found it funny, if not simultaneous. I cannot speak tonight. Simultaneously traumatic, triggering. Yeah, yeah. It is kind of traumatic in a way. It's hilarious, but it's traumatic too. So Tanya, your
Yeah, I
view.
actually saw this movie in the theaters when it came out, and I was surprised that it wasn't a bigger deal because it really resonated with me, and I'll say more about that in a minute. But first, before I get too far into my favorite scenes, I got to say, damn, it feels good to be a gangster. Anyway, so
I love
just
that. That's the best use of that song. It's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah, it's
Isn't
like
it the
this so
dream if you work
ridiculous.
in a cubicle to just
Yes.
take a drill and
Yes.
just push
Uh-huh.
the wall
I
down?
love that when he pushes the wall and the gutting the fish
Gutting
in the
the
cubicle.
fish. Yes.
And then, of course, PC low letter, what the fuck does that mean? Is classic. And then I love Milton in this. When they're passing the cake out, they have a cake for Lumberg's birthday, and they're passing around the cake, and he tries to keep all he wants is a freaking piece of cake and a stapler. This poor guy. And he's just muttering the whole time, and he's like, "You have to pass it, Milton." And he's just like, and there's no cake
Don't
left.
be
And he's like,
greedy.
yeah, he's just like, well, okay, I could burn the building down, like just his little. And then the scene where he's finally Lumberg has him in the boiler room in the basement and is telling him to take care of the cockroaches, and he leaves and he turns off the lights, and so Milton's just sitting in the dark, and he just goes, "Okay, but that's the last straw." Like, just it's all the same tone. So it's wonderful. But I did work in an office in the 90s while I was in college, several, and my boss dressed almost exactly like Lumberg. Not Gary Cole's a good-looking man, so my boss was not attractive. But the shirts with the collar, like the white collar and the matching tie suspenders, yeah, that was like I don't know if they all went to the same store in the 90s or there was only one store for that or what, but it was
Gordon
it just
Gecko chic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really, and the whole like the fact that I don't know if he's ever in a scene without his coffee mug. That's pretty great. And then
That's
the
true.
scene where Peter's having a dream, a nightmare about Joanna sleeping with Lumberg, and he's got the glasses and the coffee, and it's got her foot. And he's just like, yeah, if you could go ahead and move. Okay, yeah. That's and Peter, I'm gonna need you to come in. Oh, it's so messed up. It's great.
It's the least sexy sex scene you'll ever see. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to say Gary Cole. I guess there was originally a scene where his character gets upset, where Lumberg gets upset because of what happened to his Porsche. And he gets really like loudly angry. And Gary Cole is like, no, I don't think Lumberg should ever break this calm, like just this one tone where it's just like, even, I mean, that birthday scene, the way everybody's singing happy birthday, it's it's the most, it's just like no joy, just just like robots basically. So yeah, that's true, Bex. Dean did wear a shirt like that, and It's a Terrible Life. That's very true. Yes.
I feel like that episode of Supernatural, yeah, just to piggyback on that quick, reference this movie a lot. Anyway.
That's I think yeah, especially watching Sam's work, I think really at this. I think, of course, the smashing the printer. I know everybody's already mentioned it, but that is just so iconic because I don't think a lot of people, like you said, Meg, really get how frustrating messages like that were, and how you would sit there and you'd fix them and you'd still keep having problems and issue after issue. And especially when faxes would get jammed and then you have to get them sent, or when you'd get calls from fax machines. That's the other
Or
frustration.
one number off.
Yes. And they kept doing it over and over again. And you're like, you're calling the wrong number. And that was always frustrating. And with the opening scene, the part that always gets me and cracks me up and says so much about white people is when Michael Bolton, he's playing the rap music, and then he sees a black man approaching and he locks his door and turns the music down. And then the second the man goes past him, he turns it back up. And that says everything right there without, being like too overtly abrupt about it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that with Steve, the magazine salesperson, with the fact, that just little things like that are subtly placed in there that I think are so really clever and say
No
a
one
lot
being able to
about,
say Samir's last name.
yeah, that and everything. I mean, just little clever things, but I just like that because it's one of those like, oh yeah, that's a shocker, because people still do that. That's not like something that has changed at all. So yep. And then the first meeting with the Bobs, I think, is just great because it's one of the first times you're seeing Peter being really relaxed. And the way the Bobs react to Peter is so typical of what happens when you work in an office. And there are people that do the bare minimum and they seem to get everything and get away with everything. And then the people that work their butts off get like nothing. And so just the fact that the Bobs are so impressed with him is just, and then watching them when they're talking to Lumberg and Lumberg is insulting Peter, and the anger, they're like, Bob, just relax.
How dare you? How dare you insult their golden boy?
I just love that because their anger that you can see coming up is so hilarious. I love the gutting the fish. We already mentioned that, but I love that a lot. And the playing Tetris. I just love that he's sitting there playing Tetris and he's eating like Cheetos. And when Lumberg comes by, and he's just like, okay, well, and then Peter walks away. I've got a meeting with the Bobs. And he's like, okay, well, we'll get this fixed for you with the down. It's kind of like he doesn't even know what to say anymore. I think it's just so funny. But really, I think basically every scene in this movie you could pick as a favorite. So yeah. Now this one, I know this one is probably maybe this one's harder. I don't know. But Meg, who is your favorite character in this movie?
My favorite character, it's Milton. Like I love him so much. He's so ignored. The poor man is just, he keeps his head down. He just listens. And I love that they laid him off, but they kept paying him and he just kept coming to work. And rather than do anything, like, we just fixed the glitch. So they're gonna let him still work there as long as he's so overlooked and overshadowed all the time by everybody. And then when Tony was saying, when he's like, I can burn this building down. And then what do you know? The building burns down and he like hustles off to Mexico. And he's doing the same shit in Mexico. He's just like, I asked for a margarita with no salt. No. There were big chunks. Like, he's just, I don't know. Like, he's not a great character or anything like that, but he's just very entertaining for me. And I feel like my initial thing was like, well, Peter, because like he's cute, like, honestly, but he's
Because he's cute.
he's cute. No,
He is cute.
I have been sick all week, you guys. But no, I just love Milton. I hate to say this, I love how neglected he is. Not because it's good, but this movie does a really interesting job of kind of like Bill not being able to fire Peter, who's obviously not doing his stuff because people above him want it, like how powerless middle management actually is in a lot of situations. And then how they tend to take that powerlessness out in other ways on people like Milton, who they're like, we're just going to start storing stuff on your desk, Milton. Is that an issue? I'm going to take your stapler. I'm going to put you in a storage closet and I'm going to completely dehumanize you bit by bit by bit. And then Milton gets his revenge. And like, that's, who doesn't want the little guy to win?
Yeah.
Not that Lumberg's a big guy, but
yeah. And Beck says her favorite is definitely Peter, and swears it's not just because of the
not just,
but that's part of the reason. yeah, because I wonder. Think about this, Bex. Matt Damon's playing Peter. Would Peter still be your favorite character?
He's so much smarmier,
Everybody's
I
shaking
feel like.
their head. Yeah. So, Paula, who's your favorite character?
Well, I mean, I was going to say Milton too, because for all the reasons Meg said. So I'll go with my second favorite, Lawrence. Yeah. Because he's just, I mean, okay, honestly, who wouldn't want a neighbor like that?
Yeah.
He's fun, and he will just tell you straight up how it is.
He'll get you a job.
He'll get you a
fishing.
job. He'll take you fishing.
He'll tell you
Tell
when
you
the
when the
breast
good
exam
stuff-
commercials.
Yeah, tell you when the good stuff's on TV. I mean, and if you're screwing up somebody's life, hey, I don't want any part of that. Just leave me out of that. But I'll keep your secrets. So I mean, a good friend. He's a great friend. So we'll go with Lawrence as my second favorite.
Yeah, that's good. I love the scene when they're all plotting. He's like, "Don't worry,
Right.
Peter, I won't say anything, man."
Who's that? It's okay. He's cool.
He's the best neighbor, though.
He
Like,
really is.
he's a great neighbor. If you have to have such thin walls, it's great to have a
No,
neighbor who's
right.
chill.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's there, but he's not like too much there.
He just wants to be a part of things.
Yeah, he just
but
Yeah.
not too much.
he's a buddy. He's he's good, but yeah.
Yeah.
And also Milton did get his stapler back at the end. So, yay for the little
As
guy.
was only right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Tanya, who's your favorite?
Yeah, this is not fair. Because it was Milton, then it was Lawrence. So I'm
You can
gonna
say
just
both of those. That's fine.
yeah, those two for sure. But I'm gonna shout out. I thought Jennifer Aniston was great in this. I don't like Friends, and I never watched Friends, but I thought she was excellent, and it was nice to see her in that role. So I like Joanna quite a bit. And the whole Flair business. But I'm gonna shout out for the guy, the Chip, I don't know, the waiter who's like, like that's so annoying, that guy. Because every time he shows up, you're just like, oh, I hate you. And also Orlando Jones in that little cameo. So I'll shout out for those two. I do think it would have been really tough not to have Lumbergh be so good as a bad guy that you're just like, oh, this is just, he's not evil, but he's just so yeah. So he's that's right up there for me. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really interesting when we've done these so far with Dazed and Confused. Everybody pretty much, except for once a couple of people said, everybody's like, okay, I'll say somebody else. Everybody was pretty much saying Slater for that. For Empire Records, we all pretty much said Joe, and that had changed. When we became adults, we all said Joe. And that had changed from who it was before. But I just think it's interesting that with all of these, most of us have the same opinion. So just to shout out something different, I'm going to go ahead and shout out Peter, because this movie would not work without Peter. And I love Peter. And his overreaction with Joanna when he thinks she slept with Lumbergh is his one downfall, but I kind of get it. I mean, this is like kind of like his arch nemesis, really. And to learn that the woman that he respects and loves might have slept with him when she didn't. I understand that will affect you, but but he's just Ron Livingston is so dang good at this role, because you may think on the surface that there's not much required of this, but there's a lot required in this role, because he's kind of playing the straight guy, but kind of not. And he has to do so much without doing so little. And he has to play that switch after the hypnosis so easily that that you believe it, that you believe that he would all of a sudden do this. And it fits his character so well. And watching him struggle, and watching like when the glitch happens, they have all that money in the bank, and when he goes and he slips the note under the door of Lumbergh's office, and then 2 seconds later he's back there. He's like, no. It's like, okay, guess I'm just gonna have to live with this now. I'm going to prison. So just all of that, and just little things that he does, and the fact, in the beginning, he's just this guy who just can't ever stand up for himself, can't ever say anything in his defense, and watching him finally be able to do that, and the fact that his girlfriend is cheating on him, and everybody gets this feeling, and it always says, I just get the feeling she's cheating on you. It's just, and then the fact that she says, and I've been cheating on you. I love that. So I think he's a great character. So shout out to him. And he is nice to look at too. So yeah. Okay, so this of course is relatable, I think, for, as we've said, for office work, restaurant work, really any work. But I want to talk about the office work first, because I know, Meg, you started liking this movie after you worked in an office, right? Because it's a documentary.
Yeah. Well, so I was, like I said, I was 14 when this movie came out, so I didn't really have a lot of reference. And let me tell you, the first time I saw this movie,
okay, Meg, you're young. We get it.
I was basically an infant, you guys.
God, I feel so old right now.
The first time I watched this movie, though, I came into it about 10 minutes into it, so I missed the very crucial scene of him getting hypnotized.
Oh, you did? Oh my gosh. Wow, talk about, yeah, that's bad.
And I'm just watching it, and I was like, what is happening? And I remember thinking, I was like, there's no freaking way that offices are actually like this. Like, these people actually exist. I was wrong. Every office, and I worked in offices for just under 20 years. I've worked in an office environment, cubicle farms, the whole shebang, blah, blah. Every single place I've ever worked, every department I've ever worked in, these people exist. The way too perky on the phone person, the just a moment, they're real. And that's when I really was able to start appreciating not just the movie, but Peter and Michael and Samir as characters, and with their dealing with being a cog in a machine that does not care about you. And like, it's one of those things where now I'm older watching it, and I find it really, really funny also, but I actually find it very sad and like frustrating, because it's true. People are not meant to be sitting in little cubicle farms staring at a computer all day and not being, and I mean, basically being worked to death. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm going to wait for Tanya to talk about that later.
She's going to talk about it when it's her turn. That's when I'm going to keyword to talk about.
Yeah, but the whole idea of having 8 bosses, and anytime you make a mistake, there are 8 people there who are going to tell you that you made that mistake. That is the realest part about that whole thing for me, because there's nothing better when you fuck up than to have all these other people continually reminding you that you did it. And then not listening to you say, yeah, so-and-so already told me it's taken care of. And having to do that over and over and over again. And the inane policy changes, like the TPS reports and all of this, like all of it, it's too real. I can't handle it. It's too real.
Yeah.
But that's what made me appreciate the comedy of it so much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Beck said she was a senior in high school and had already worked in an IT office. Yeah, when I was in high school, I went and did like file clerk work at that where my mom worked, the law office that my mom worked at. But I would usually go in there like on a Saturday, and I'd be like the only one in the office usually. But sometimes I'd go in there in the summer. I'd be in there during the weekdays. But yeah, so
and my dad was an office. Yeah, my dad was a computer programmer during the lead up to Y2K. I remember him working like crazy. So the idea of having to come in on Saturday, but these guys are all salaried, so they're not even getting overtime or anything for it, and they're getting paid a pittance. But I just remember the Y2K freaking out. Like we all thought the world was just going to end because the 2 zeros, man. We could.
And then nothing happened. That was I remember. Oh man, I remember that time. So
I remember my dad was like, "Well, my dad's always been like, well, nothing happened because we did all that prep work." And I'm like, "Sure, Dad, you made a shit ton of money consulting, and then you retired. You didn't work for 6 months."
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Paula, I know you said you've never worked in an actual office setting, but but I know it's relatable still for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in management a little bit. Again, like not in that type of an office setting, and but even still, again, all of this is still relatable no matter what type of job you have. Um, like I said, the disgruntled employees, the people that don't pull their weight and do their job but yet get away with everything. The multiple bosses that you're answering to that are either all piling on you when you do something wrong or all giving you contradictory information, the people that are coming in and deciding if you're doing your job efficiently, and those types of things. All of it's still relatable no matter what type of job you have, I think.
Yeah, like Carla, hi. Like Carla just said, Carla said she's only ever worked in small companies, but these things are all true no matter the size of your employer. And it's nice that it's consistent across the miserable board.
Well, I think what's so messed up too, when you talk about the multiple supervisors who are always quick to tell you when you do something wrong, if you do something exceptional that saves your company a bunch of money or is really efficient, nothing.
Yeah.
Usually
you do not. Yeah. You don't have 8 people telling you what a great job you did. Normally what you do is you find out that your boss got the credit for it in a meeting with the whole staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, very true. Yeah.
Yay!
So Tanya.
Yes. Are you ready?
Us. Yes.
Okay. Marxist rant, sociological rant. Like when I first saw this, I was in an undergrad and reading Marx. So, take all of this past me stuff with a grain of salt. But for real, rewatching it this week, I thought, yeah, this is exactly the reason this is so soul sucking and like demoralizing in terms of work. You could interpret this through a Marxist lens. So this movie works as a Marxist critique of an advanced capitalist society and what the nature of work is in that. Okay, I know you're not ready. You're not here for a lecture, but you're going to get one. So Marx, as you know, was famous for saying workers are going to rise up and institute socialism and et cetera, and then we'd have communism. But one of his, I would say, outside of some academic circles, his lesser known theories were about the problems with work in an advanced capital or in a capitalist society, where that people who are doing the work, workers, are alienated from the product, which means we can't choose what we make, or we don't have control over that. We're alienated from the process, so we don't get to decide when we go to work, when we go home, right? That's all because we have to commodify ourselves as a commodity in terms of labor. That's all decided by someone else. We're alienated from like the tools of production, meaning, Peter doesn't own his desk, his cubicles. And that's why it's so great when he sort of takes some ownership over it and unscrews the screws, right? And plays Tetris and whatever. And then this is the real key of this movie for Karl Marx. Work was what it means to be human. So being able to do work that we choose is how we express what Marx called, thanks, Meg, what Marx called our species being. So Peter is very, very much, and the other workers here are alienated from their species being, because they're essentially, this is stripping a worker of what it means to be human, because we can't work on what we would choose to. And so when Peter, his attitude's like, I'm just not going to do that, I'm just going to do what I want to do, he's trying to say, like, I want to have meaning in my life, but this whole context, this whole apparatus is just designed to make me a cog in a machine, as we all get. We all get that feeling. So Marx thought, back to theory for a sec, once we got to communism, we would essentially have robots that would do everything for us, and we would be able to do whatever we want all day, which would be art, creativity, expression, like, basket weaving, whatever. And I'm not kidding. Like that's sort of like what he actually thought was going to happen. We didn't get there, but that alienation from species being, you can really see this, like that. Peter doesn't know what he does. He doesn't care. He has zero investment. It doesn't matter how hard he works. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. I'll talk about Marx more if we want. But I actually, for many, many years, put Peter from this show in my slides and tried to talk when we talk about bureaucracy and Soch, because from the other side, another theory in Soch, the reason this is universal is some of the problems of bureaucracy, right? And the Peter principle is not named after our Peter. That sounds bad. It's not named after this Peter. Your Peter, our Peter. I don't know who it's named after, but I'm pretty sure that the Peter principle, I believe, I hope I'm not mixing this up, but it's basically this theory in bureaucracy that people will rise to their level of incompetence. So I think we see this in Lumbergh, right? Like you get promoted to a point where you're actually not very good at your job anymore, but they can't demote you. So you just kind of hit this level. And I mean, how many people have we seen like that? Not to be you're good enough to get to here, but you're actually not very competent at this job. So that's the Peter principle. And I think we see that too. So I'll stop with my lesson unless you want more.
I think that's so interesting, because so many people are like, my boss can't do my job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. And
and
we're seeing, I think, with a lot of the workers, you're like, we didn't quite get there. And I'm just like, yet.
Yeah. Because I think because of COVID, a lot of people are starting to realize how true. And I do think, I mean, yes, this is a comedy, but I do think a big reason Mike Judge made this movie is exactly what you're saying, Tanya. That was, I think, his big influence. I mean, the reason he had three restaurants that are all pretty much the same, all right near the office, is because every office park he had ever been at looked the same, did the exact same. So it all kind of repeats this kind of mold, just like the suburbs, where you have the houses built up in 2 seconds flat and they all look alike. So I think it all kind of fits into that. Yeah.
Even the names of all the companies were all almost identical.
Initech and Innovect and
Inatrode and
absolutely
Intertrode.
Inatrobe or what?
Yeah.
And this was true for you young folks, like this is a very Gen X movie, and there were a lot of
Yeah,
movies
it
like
is.
this at the
Very,
time
very
that
Gen
were
X.
sort of expressing existential ennui and distress at the state of, the blandness of modern suburban bureaucratic life. Okay, there we go. But there's all the words I know. But it just, yeah, I remember we lived in this kind of slightly suburban area of Madison, and we had to drive past a building, and it was called Inatro. It was very similar. It could have been
I
one of the
know
names
exactly the building
from
you're
this.
talking about.
Yeah, it's on it's south of the Beltline.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's still there, but yeah, we used to live over there. Okay. So
No, I
anyway,
used to live on
and
the Far
then
East Side, so we drove by it a lot.
Mhm.
So
And then we would go visit our friends who lived in the Chicago suburbs. And every time you see an interior of like Peter's apartment or their apartments that are next to each other, it it just I can't it's so accurately what that was like. And even Peter's like computer books and things like that. Like my husband had all of those. And yeah, just the I don't know, the dread of like going to another Applebee's again and just like having them try to shove personality at you, but it's so canned and it's so phony. Yeah.
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and I heard TGI Fridays trivia I saw because I read all the Wikipedia, discontinued their flair requirement after this movie.
Yeah. Well, Gunther Tooties here didn't. So, because that's another one that requires that kind of stuff. I haven't watched Severance yet. I've heard it's amazing. I want to watch it. Has anyone watched that yet? Yeah, I want to watch it. And then Carla said we need a weekly segment called Tanya's Marxist Corner. Yeah, that's a good
Sure.
idea. Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
show
but
up for that.
yeah, no, I agree with this being very Gen X, and I think every movie we're covering this in this 4-part is very Gen X. Even Dazed and Confused, even though Dazed and Confused takes place in the 70s, it's still a very Gen X movie because the time it was released and the majority of people that ended up attaching themselves to it, and of course Empire Records is so Gen X. And the last movie that we're talking about, Pump Up the Volume, is the most Gen X of all the movies we're talking about. Because a lot of the things in these movies, I think older millennials can, but I don't think a lot of people, there's certain things that you can't relate to in the same way. And as I've said, I think Gen X were kind of the forgotten generation. And I think that's what a lot of these movies are speaking to too. So yeah, I agree. Because I think people too often throw off comedies and don't think that they're trying to say anything meaningful. And this is definitely trying to say something meaningful. It's trying to say this isn't what we're supposed to be doing as human beings.
Yeah, I
And yeah,
actually agree.
including
I think it's honestly a fairly brilliant commentary on kind of late stage capitalism and
Mhm.
where we are, where we just we've said it before, we're all cogs in a machine. It reminds me a lot of the whole I Love Lucy thing where she's trying to keep the literal cogs going and no one it's just but yeah, I'm an elder millennial or geriatric millennial is what they call us.
Yeah, you're right there on the
I'm an exennial, I guess is the proper term, but even that I'm on the cusp of because like Empire Records was one of my favorite movies growing up, but that's a whole other thing. But I think this movie is absolutely trying to say something, and I think it says it fairly clearly. I think that's why it became a cult classic.
Yeah, it's so dang really because when this movie came out, I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it on video. But I was working in mortgage at the time, and I was working in a mortgage office, and it was a small office, and it was office where we were actually really close. We were friends. We like had monthly get-togethers, and it was like it really was like a family. Honestly, when it closed down, it was very heartbreaking and upsetting. And I will say it was a company that for in a lot of ways treated its employees fairly wage wise. I started there as a receptionist, moved up very quickly, and the salary moved up with me. And when they did lay us off, they gave us like a few months notice, which is very rare, and a very nice severance package and and stuff. And so it was very nice in that way, but there were still the office politics as well. There were still the things of we would have people that weren't working as hard as the others and they would get away with it and that kind of thing. Or you'd have like, everybody on here knows how my work ethic with this. And I always get to places early, and I happened to be late a couple of times during a week, like 5 minutes late or something, and I got reamed. And I'm like, I stay late, I work through my lunch. And so it's that. So even though it was a great place to work, there was still that kind of thing of like, you still had that office politics there. So yeah. So yeah. The flare in the film was what traumatized Bex's husband. Yeah, because my roommate at the time this came out, she was working actually at Gunther Tooties. So she always had to have the flare. So it was like watching, I was relating in the office side and she was relating on the restaurant side. And then she started working in an office. We lost Tanya. So hopefully we'll get Tanya back. But in the meantime, while we wait for Tanya to return, and Tanya had mentioned, and we'll probably, maybe we'll just cover that one next year at around this time. But Tanya mentioned another movie that I think actually does fit very well into this, and that's Fight Club. And I think that also fits in this too. So, and there are a lot of things to discuss with that movie. So we might discuss that next year, along with Heather's. Yes. Oh, and Tanya has returned. Yay,
Excuse me,
Tanya
the ghost of Karl Marx entered my computer, kicked me out of StreamYard because he was like, "Listen, she needs a break. You're alienating
I thought
her
the
from her
capitalists
bathroom
found
break."
you.
No. Yeah, no, I don't know what happened, but I'm here. Yay!
You're back. Good. Yeah. Well, and I was just mentioning, shouting out I know it was your thing about saying office space. That's what we're talking about. Fight Club was kind of in the same. So I was mentioning we should probably cover that next year when we do this. So, okay. Well, now I want to talk about the relatability for restaurant. I have never worked in a restaurant. I've worked in food work, and I've worked in, of course, I've said Blockbuster before, and a couple of other places like Baskin Robbins and stuff, which that's why I won't eat Baskin Robbins ice cream. So I don't think they've ever sponsored us. So, so Meg, did you work at restaurants?
I have worked in many restaurants. I started working when I was 14 years old. And my first job was in like a little mom and pop restaurant in Madison. That was like Popcornopolis, Chicago Deli. Like I would bike there. But that was so much different than when I went to work at Red Robin or when I went to work at Noodles and Company. I never worked at Fridays because it was too far for my parents to ever drive me to work. But the fake jovialness, I don't know, the fake joy that you're supposed to be spouting on. And I personally think everybody should have to work in service industry in some form. Everyone should have to work in customer service, because I feel like there can be zero chance that anyone would treat customer service representatives or wait staff or any other human being the way that so many people treat service workers. And especially like seeing the stuff post-COVID, like a year ago, these were our essential workers and our heroes. And now we're still going to be able to just shit all over them like they're not people. But that's a different podcast. But I did find it really relatable. I remember having the boss who's just like, now you got to remember, these are all the cheers and the birthday songs that you have to remember. And the scheduling nightmares. Like we used to have one schedule in the back that would say something. I actually got fired because of this. One schedule in the back would say one thing. The schedule in the front would say something completely different. And every manager I would talk to would tell me to go to a different one. And I didn't show up for a shift. And I got fired for a no-call, no-show. And I was just like, I'm not on the schedule. And like, no, you're on that one over there. And I'm just like, I don't know. I never dealt with flair personally, but my sister had to deal with it. And she was very much like Jennifer Aniston is in this. Is like, if you want me to wear more than 15 pieces of flair, make the minimum more than 15 pieces of flair. And that's the most infuriating thing about that whole thing. Like, why even have a minimum? Yeah. Like the idea of like, express yourself. Like, this is me expressing myself, doing the bare minimum, because that's what I do. But yeah. And Carla forgot she worked at a movie theater.
That's the second time you have forgotten that, Carla. I want to remind you of that.
I used to work at a movie theater too. They used to let us take the giant popcorn tubes home at the end of the night, and it
Yeah.
was so much more popcorn than you'd think.
Yeah, when I was working at Blockbuster, my roommate, this was right after high school, my roommate worked at a movie theater, so we would get a lot of our meals between those two places, like the split food we took home. That'd
Oh,
be our
that's how I
meals.
saw. That's how I
Which
saw
is
Lord of
so
the Rings
horrible.
before it came out. Was because I worked in a movie theater.
Yeah, we got to see so many things. It was great.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
awesome.
So Carla's never worked at a restaurant, but eaten at movies, so definitely an expert.
I've
she's
become an
something-
ex.
Yeah.
Dex was.
No, I
a
was just gonna say that's funny.
yeah. So Paula, did you ever work at a restaurant or any kind of customer service thing?
I worked at a McDonald's for about 6 months. So it was a whole different kind of actually look, I'll just say it. That was actually one of the best jobs I ever had. Because I worked the night shift, so I didn't have to deal with a lot of this stuff during the day. So yeah. So it's not quite so relatable in that respect, but I've worked customer service in retail and yeah, very relatable there.
Yeah, people are awful, man. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Did you have? Well, that's interesting. So did you work like at the overnight shift then at McDonald's? Like it was like over.
Well,
they
they
open
didn't
24. Well, they weren't.
they
open
didn't
24
they
hours,
didn't
but-
do the overnight 24-hour thing at that point. So we closed at I worked from like 5 to like 10 o'clock. So it was like
Oh,
a
okay.
part-time thing. Because I was in between full-time jobs at that point. And I think our lobby closed at like 9 o'clock, and then at 10 o'clock the drive-through closed. And that was right around the time that like Scream had come out. So we got a lot of kids coming through the drive-through going, "What's up?" That, and it was just you'd stand there and roll your eyes like, "Hi," and you still got to be friendly and cheerful. And do you want fries with that?
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. But
Yeah, there's an episode of this is really taking it back, of Freddy's Nightmares, the series that used to be on about the Freddy Krueger series, and there was an episode all about someone who worked an overnight shift at a fast food place, and it was really creepy actually. I think they released that on some streaming service. I don't remember. So anyway, I don't know why, but that made me think of that. So yeah, this right here from Bex. I once had a manager who made us answer the phone. Bookstore name, I can help you. Oh, that's so annoying.
That's awful.
Yeah.
That's so cringy.
yeah.
That's
Those kinds of things, because you always had those like scripted lines that you'd have to say when you'd be talking to someone in the drive-thru, or when they come to your window, or when you're answering a phone. And those are one, your customer really just wants to get or ask you their question, so they really don't have time for that, and your employees really hate having to ask them because they know your customers don't want to hear it either. So please stop making your employees do that.
Yeah.
Just a
I
moment.
agree.
Right.
Yeah. So and hey, getting the right hot dog. I've never had a movie theater hot dog. I don't think ever, because they scare me.
I've had them.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever, even though I've had their nachos like hundreds of times. I'm like, I don't know why that doesn't scare me. So Tanya, have you ever worked at a restaurant or any retail?
I have. Yeah, not really retail, but yes, my first job was working at a root beer stand, but it was kind of like it was a small, kind of like A&W, but not the brand. And I was a cook, like a fry cook. So that was that was an experience. And then I was also a hostess and a waitress in a kind of a restaurant in my town in high school. And yeah, it was just awful. Like, I mean, I hated it because customers would be like, "What's good here?" And I'm like, "Listen, you're at what is essentially a Denny's in rural Wisconsin, and you're here because it's the only restaurant around for 100, I don't know, 20 miles. What's good here? A cheeseburger? I don't know, man. It's not like we have something amazing that I'm gonna know about, or with like,
Like
what's
you
good
are here for food that you don't have to cook.
Yeah, this is not, I'm not going to be like, well, how about the blackened salmon with, Brussels sprouts? I don't know. It's like, what do you,
Yeah.
what's
Well,
good
and
here?
I worked in a mom
Nothing.
and pop. Yeah, I worked in a mom
Nothing
and
is
pop
good here.
shop.
Go
like-
somewhere else.
Yeah, there's nothing good. You want a fried egg? That's what we
Right.
can give you. But I worked in a mom and pop, like a very, very small restaurant. I worked in a chain restaurant, like I said, I worked at Red Robin's for a little while, and I've also worked in a hotel restaurant, and they're like such vastly different experiences, but they all have the same kind of underlying stuff that we see in Office Space. Like you have that boss that's just like, always make sure if you're having a good time, the customer is having a good time, and it doesn't matter how terrible they are to you, you are having a great time, and it's always this. But
Yeah.
it was
Well, yeah, and then if
Smile
you're,
while
you know, if you're a
Yeah,
a young
smile.
woman, you get pretty much you get sexually harassed, like your whole like I know
and you
this
smile
now.
through it.
I didn't understand it at the time, but essentially I would be sexually harassed by customers and other employees, and I was like, yeah, that was messed up. I wouldn't let people treat me that way now, and I wouldn't let anybody treat my daughter that way. You know, it's just like, why was that okay? And like you felt like you had to be like smile for the customers and all of that, and you're like, this is screwed up. This is not how it should be. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, Carla worked the movie theater was a second run theater, and a lot of customers were not exactly wealthy, but we were pushed to upsell. And Carla said she was good at it, but within a week stopped because she absolutely hated it. Yeah, the upsell thing. Yeah, always being encouraged to do that kind of stuff. And yeah, the sexual harassment stuff. That's because I know I was told a couple times when I worked at Blockbuster, if somebody would call on the phone, I've been told this before, they would say, "Oh, how much do I owe you? Do you want my credit card number right now?" Like 1-900 number, like they were calling a sex hotline. And I would get that all the time, a lot. That happened to me a lot because of my phone voice. And so I would hear that all the time. And at the time, I just kind of laughed it off and was like, whatever. But I think that stuff happens a lot more than I think, we want to admit. And we're slowly starting to try and admit it, but we aren't really, because it still happens. And I mean, when the Me Too movement started, there were also, a lot of people in hotels and restaurants and stuff were talking about all the stuff that had happened to them and how that's very rarely talked about. But yeah, I mean, the way like waitresses are talked to by patrons, and at bars, when people are going to bars and they're getting really drunk, and which I'm not using as an excuse, I'm just saying they're getting really drunk and people having to deal with that and all of that kind of stuff. But I do agree. I think everybody should have to work some kind of customer service job in their lifetime, because yeah, I think if you work that and you still treat customer service workers like crap, then you're just a crappy person to begin with.
Yeah,
Because
did you know that they updated Dante's Inferno, and they added another layer of hell for people who are rude to customer service? No, I'm just kidding, but yeah.
I mean, they should.
They
That
should.
should
Yes,
absolutely be a
yes.
thing.
It's such a massive lesson in empathy, because like I've worked so many jobs. I've worked retail, I've worked Black Fridays and toy
Mhm.
stores. Talk about upselling. I used to work at Best Buy. I've done so many jobs, and you can always tell the people who had worked in customer service,
Yes.
or had work in the food industry or something like that, versus especially in wait staff. They're always better tippers. They're way more patient if there's an issue going on, and they're not giant assholes if something goes wrong
Mhm.
with the food. Like, I'm sorry that your steak was cooked too much. I had nothing to do with that. There's no reason to yell at me. But you can
Mhm.
always tell those people, and I think it would be so important for people to have to do that, just to understand how hard it is. And it's not unskilled labor. It's not. If it was unskilled, we wouldn't need people to do it. Like, everything is a skill. But
Yeah. No, I agree.
I'm going to
Yeah.
go on my own little rant. It's not going to be as smart as Tanya's and talk about studies or anything. It's just going to be me bitching about customer service people.
No, it's true. I mean, the way people treat, yeah, I think it says a lot about a person. Yeah, like Carl said, harassment. I worked at a carnival for a few weekends at a thingy where you could take a pic on a real Harley Davidson, and men thought we were fair game, 2 women alone. I mean, yeah, that's awful. And then this is really awful. But Bex once worked at an inbound call center, like you watch infomercials and call to order. It was for lots of products, and one was X10s and the other Girls Gone Wild videos. And Bex was asked multiple times if she was in the videos. So, yeah, I think people don't really don't talk to people in customer service like they're human beings. They forget that that's a person, and it's really gross. And we did a live tweet of the movie Fresh last Friday, and there is an opening scene where she's going on a date with a guy who's just, oh God, the worst guy ever. And then he's like really rude to the wait staff, like goes like this, that finger snapping and calling and says to, well, do you understand what I'm actually saying? And I said, that's how you can tell. You can tell a lot about a person by the way they treat the wait staff. If they treat the restaurant staff like they're human beings and talk to them nicely, then I think that's a good person. If you're going to talk to somebody like they're less than you, then I don't think you're a good person. That's why I've never understood that thing of like, you can't hang out with someone who's not making the same amount of money as you are. You can't date someone like that, or you can't, that kind of snobbery. I don't know. I've never understood that. So yeah, it's just, ugh. Yeah. Well, I want to know, because it's asked a lot of times in here, and granted, $1 million doesn't, which is, it's so weird to say this, but $1 million doesn't get you as much as it used to. But what would you do if you had $1 million, Meg?
I would buy you a green dress, but not a real green dress. That's cruel.
That was perfect.
That's the best answer right there.
No one's gonna beat that.
Nope.
I saw that question, and that's all I've been able to think about is that song over and over and over again.
And now
But
I'm sad
not
that
a real
did not
green
cross
dress.
my
That's
mind.
cruel.
And now I have to go listen to
man.
it.
I know. I'm like trying to come up with the other lines, but yeah.
I'd be rich. Haven't you always wanted a monkey? I love that movie. I love that song. No, it's kind of sad. If I had $1 million right now, I would probably make sure my kids had college funds taken care of, pay off my mortgage, and I would not do very much. I would take a trip probably, but in general, it would be like I would pay off my mortgage, so that's something I don't have to worry about. So I don't have to worry about what job I have so much, because that's a huge expense taken care of, and my kids' college being paid for is a huge expense taken care of for them and for me. But yeah, other than that, I would be like, oh, let's go to Europe. That'll be fun. I would go to Disney World once on $1 million.
Yes. And feel free to answer too, Carla and Bex. So, Paula, what would you do if you had $1 million?
See, and these answers are so different from when we were younger and we first watched this movie. Pay off my mortgage, pay off my sister's bills, pay off my dad's bills, and then my husband and I are going on as long of a vacation as I can take. Road trip across America so I can hit all 50 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. And then we're doing the European vacation. Probably a cruise. All those things we want to do, and we're probably going to blow through the entire $1 million. So I'm still going to have to work. So I'll probably be a little bitter about it by the end, but I'll enjoy it on the journey.
I almost upped the amount, but I was like, no, since they say $1 million, we're going to go with $1 million.
We're going to stick with $1 million.
You wouldn't have to eat craft dinner, but you still would.
Of course you would.
We just eat more. It would be name brand craft. It would not be the store brand.
No.
Okay, so Tanya, what would you
all night?
What would you do?
Wow, yeah, it's this is kind of sad, but I'd probably do nothing like Peter for a little while, and then I would do what I do now. I love teaching, and I don't know, I'm happy. I feel kind of bad about it. No, I'd probably like, of course it'd be nice to have money for things like getting the carpet out of my bathroom. Who puts carpet in a bathroom? It definitely was
Yeah.
designed by Lumberg or whoever did Initech stuff. Because yeah, I would do that. I've always thought about if I ever had enough money that this made sense. I would love to do scholarships for our students at my community college, or I would create some kind of a scholarship fund or endowment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super nerdy.
No,
Buy
it's
everybody
awesome.
a copy of the Communist Manifesto and make them
Start
go
a
to a book
revolution.
club. No, yeah.
Carla has a plan, very specific: 20% to charities that directly help underserved communities, 15% each to my sisters and mom, so for 45% total, and set aside 20% for Tiny's future needs and pay off the mortgage and travel.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. If anybody wants to give me money, I will take it. I need money. It's not like I didn't want to
I'll
sound like
take
I
it too.
don't.
Look
Yeah.
at Miss Happy
Yeah.
in her
No,
job over
I'm
here.
happy in my job because I get to talk at people and they can't leave. But it's kind of like this. No, they can leave this. So anyway, but yeah, you get it. So anyway, if you got a cool million, give it to Erin for the podcast. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And Bex would pay off debt and help family with that, pay for siblings to go to college, and a down payment on a brownstone. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd pay off debt. I'd pay off my mom's debt. I would pay off my sister's debt. And then I would want, here in Colorado, it's really hard to buy. I mean, I rent, so I don't have the home ownership thing, which is a whole other thing that you can talk about of the way that you can make people feel like crap when they don't have that thing. But it's really hard here to buy anything that is like worth anything anymore in Colorado. Colorado is way too dang expensive. I've got to leave. I don't want to, but it's just so hard. And so I would say I'd buy a place, but it'd be pretty hard to do that. But I would want to build a studio, a really good studio for the podcast. Because I would never, if I was given enough money where I wouldn't have to have another job, like, my mom said the other day, she said, your other job is actually your second job. Your podcast is your first job. I think you should look at it that way. And I really appreciated that. So, because if I could only do this, I would only do this. I love doing this. If I could do this as my main job and I could do this as a main source of income in a heartbeat, if I could do that and just have everything else secured and be able to do it, I would never give this up. So, so I guess that kind of tells you what what I would want to do with my life. So yes.
I just thought of something else. And I can't believe I forgot this. I would totally buy a 67 Impala and have it restored.
I
There
would
you go.
absolutely buy my husband his dream car, which is I think it's a 72 Corvette.
Yeah. Oh, I would go on my dream trip is to take a road trip, a music road trip. And so just going to I'd visit you too, Meg. But
there's music in Wisconsin.
But just going to places that have
Polka
some kind of
music,
some kind of musical relevance, and that's my dream road trip, and I love road trips. So that would be the trip that I would take, and then I would go overseas because I've never been outside of the country, so I would definitely want to do that too. So yeah, look at this. I just want to point something out. This is sorry. You should say that, Tanya.
I should say it. Yeah, I was being obnoxious. So we have a private chat, and I've been being obnoxious this whole time. But I said, what we could do with $1 million is, if the 90s have taught me nothing, it's that $1 million will get you one night with Demi Moore. And
Robert Redford will fight you for it.
Yeah, do you remember this movie?
Yes.
I feel like I've seen it, and I'm just
Indecent Proposal.
Yeah.
it was awful. But anyway, I mean, I don't think it was a good movie. I'm just like, but okay. Yeah, I just had to throw that in there.
Sorry, I had to make you say that. So yes, I want an electric car too. That would be
Mhm.
another thing I want to buy, is something electric or at least a hybrid, something like that. Yeah, definitely, for sure. Luckily, my car is paid off, so that wouldn't be one of the debts I'd have to pay off. But you know, so this is
We're
amazing.
all
It's
old
at-
and responsible, guys.
No, it sucks.
we're all, I know no one else on here, I don't know if Paula did, but I know no one else on, I know Carla did, but Carla, we've all become Ross from Friends when they when they all are buying the lottery tickets, and he's the only one that's like, I would invest it in this and this, and Joey's like, I'd buy the Knicks.
Like it's
That's
enough
an
money,
investment.
but yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would probably blow a good 10 to 25 grand on costumes. I'll admit that, and dumb shit for my cat.
I would
but
go to
the
2
cat-
supernatural conventions with $1 million.
It's not
Gold.
accurate.
whatever,
Get 4,
whatever,
get
like
2 cold,
whatever
and
the-
4 ops.
yeah, like the platinum level where you're just on stage with them.
Is that the
like,
super secret
yeah.
level that you
I
have
know,
to
I'm
have
like,
$1
I
million
didn't know there
to
was
get?
that level.
The VIP level where I just follow them around everywhere they go. You have to hold my hand like I'm a tiny child.
We were
Ross
were
was
hiking.
creepy, not
we
just
were
obnoxious, Carla.
hiking today, and this little kid who's like 3 or 4 just says to his dad in the cutest voice, "Papa, hold my hand!" Like, and I'm just imagining Meg now. Jensen, hold my hand!
Hold my hand.
Hold my hand!
I'm scared.
Well, this is amazing. We're at the 1 hour and 20-minute mark, and we are done. This is
I think this is a
miracle.
record.
The
This
first
is-
time
this
we
is-
haven't
this
talked
is-
about a movie for longer than the movie ran.
That's what I was thinking.
That's true.
Yeah.
I just want to say high five to my whole panel. This is our Empire Records episode was pretty short. It was like an hour and a half or 40 minutes before editing. This is amazing. So this is going to be, wow, Meg. I think Meg, I'm gonna single you out here because this is incredible to have you on a podcast. So high five to you, biggest of high fives to
This
Meg.
is what happens when I'm sick for a week and I got barely enough energy to
No, I just- thank you all.
shamble my corpse onto a desk chair.
But thank you all very much. And I'm sorry that you're not feeling well. I don't want you to not continue to feel well to make this stuff a possibility. in
I
the
will
future.
talk for twice as
but-
long next time to make up for it.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You don't need to do that. But thank you.
You asked. No, I'm gonna.
No, I did not ask. But no, I think this is let's be real, it's because you're not on, Carla. that could be part of it, but this is my editing brain is so happy right now. So thank you everyone so much. This has been a lot of fun. I love this movie. I have loved these weeks. I cannot wait for our next episode. I'm so dang excited. So I'm glad that we're going to start doing this because even though I watch TV a lot more than I used to, movies are my first love between movies and television. So this is just a blast. And I love this movie so dang much. I never get tired of it. I still laugh every single time. So thank you everyone for joining me. So I'm going to go around and have everybody say where they can be found and where their podcast can be found, Meg.
Yeah, you can find my podcast on the Twitter at my podcast with Carla, of course, my better half. On the Twitter at bedwedbeheadpod. You can find us on Instagram at bed.wed.behead.pod. You can find us on the other blue social media thing at Bedwed or Behead Pod. My personal social, you can find me on the Twitter at Wisconsinac, which is WISCONSENNACH. Blame
Awesome.
Carla,
Yeah.
as always.
And I'm taking that wink to mean that you don't mean that you really don't mean that you actually do like this movie, Carla, because
She sometimes has really bad taste. It's okay.
it's
Like,
true.
she
Sometimes,
can't be. She's not perfect. She can't be
yeah.
perfect.
It's true. Some of her taste is
The rest of
movie,
us have
Carla.
to still exist in the same world as her. She has to have a flaw.
So Paula, where can they find you? Oh, we lost Tanya again.
Tanya.
said about Carla saying she didn't like
Yes.
the movie.
Oh,
Oh my
Carla,
goodness.
man,
No,
you
she
mean
means it.
this? Oh my
Oh.
gosh. Bye-bye, Carla. No. Carla's name has disappeared from the schedule. No, I love you.
So you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at It's My Sandbox.
Awesome. And hopefully Tanya will be back on the same. There she is, just in time. Just in time to have her where she can.
Yay!
I keep doing something because I
Don't
keep
like
clicking the
movie,
wrong.
but I love you.
It's just I don't know what my problem is tonight, but you can find me in the boiler room looking for cake with Milton. No, you can find me on Twitter. That's what I'm ready to go. Yeah, I'll just do it. Okay.
Yes, you are. Yes.
AK
You're ready to go, Tanya.
I was in the middle of a story, but that's fine. No,
Oh, I'm
just
sorry.
No,
Okay.
he was. He
You
wasn't.
can find me in the club. No, you can find me at AK Nerd Fighting. AKN and F are capital on the Twitter, and I'll probably be talking about the pirate show. So
watch this space for amazing cosplay of Steed.
yeah, I'm gonna do the mutton chops and all that, but I gotta
Yes.
we're gonna work on it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is Erin. You can follow me on Twitter at eAprilBeauty. The E and the A and the B are capitalized. Be sure to like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/itsafandom-thing-pod. On Twitter at fandom-thing-pod. No it's in that one. On Instagram at itsafandom-thing-pod. On TikTok at itsafandom-thing-pod. Go to our website at which is just itsafandom-thing-pod.com. And if you want to be a potential interview guest on the show, Ron Livingston, you want to come and chat with us for a while, I would love to talk with you.
look at
I'm
your
dead
eyebrows.
serious. I'm dead serious about that. But yeah, or anyone from this cast. If you want to have a reunion, we put that out to the Empire Records cast. And that goes to the Dazed and Confused cast. Well, I don't know if I want some of those people on, but I'm putting that out there that if any of the cast from any of these movies want to come on and do a reunion on this show, you can either email us at itsafandom-thing-pod@gmail.com or go to our website, itsafandom-thing-pod.com, hit the contact us button there, and, we'll reach out to you, and that'll be a ton of fun. Okay, so on our next podcast episode, we are going to be talking about Pump Up the Volume. And I have to say, of the 4 that we are talking about, this is my favorite. This is the one I'm the most excited about. I cannot wait to talk about this movie. Number 1, this is the very first podcast. No one can argue with me about this. This was the very first podcast. Happy Harry Hard On. So I'm very, very excited to be talking about this. This movie is so dang good. This movie is just exceptional. It holds up so well. And it's the most Gen X of all the ones we're talking about. The music is phenomenal, which is part of the reason why you couldn't find it anywhere streaming for forever. So the rights to it, but it's on HBO Max. All the same music is in there. They didn't change anything. So we are going to be releasing that episode on Friday. And we're also Friday night, this coming Friday night, the 15th, we are going to be doing a live tweet for Pump Up the Volume. That's starting at 7 p.m. Mountain. So that's 6 Pacific, 8 Central, 9 Eastern. So join us for that as well. Bye, Carla. This, unlike the movie, has been a treat. Well, whatever, Carla.
God, that one last swipe as she
I know,
leaves.
man. But that should be a lot
Okay
of
to
fun.
be wrong.
But then for our next live stream, next Saturday, April 16th, join my Finn crew. Unfortunately, Erin A won't be there, but we have a new addition to our Finn crew, Chrissy, who is joining us on all our American Horror Story episodes. We are going to be talking about Ratched, and this is the first part of our Ryan Murphy journey revisit. So we are going to be doing that as a live stream at the same time as this one, so 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And you will hear a lot of gushing about Finn Wittrock on this episode, okay? It's just going to happen. His performance is absolutely astonishing in this. And yes, we'll also be gushing about his body in this as well. So, because that's also astonishing. I did that just to see Meg's reaction.
I'm just like, that's a lot of, maybe everybody should buy an extra roll of Bounty because it sounds like there's a lot of gushing coming up. And
Get some sham wows ready. Like,
But remember, as I said before, it's a prosthetic. It's not the real thing. So-
I was completely I was not.
I didn't even
actually
realize
trying
that
to-
was a thing.
there's a scene,
Whoa.
see, full frontal, but it's a prosthetic.
I'm trying to think of
Well,
like
then.
just the makeup work and the time of putting a dong on your dong.
Well, no, you know what? There's a video of Sarah Paulson, and she's asked. They asked her about that, about about the penis and the prosthetic penis, and Sarah Paulson said, "Well, what they do is this very, very they have there's the makeup person or some style or someone."
A stylist. Oh,
No, like no, someone working in that department, in like the production department, has like a box of prosthetic penises, and when
I can't, like, the picture I have is like this is a cardboard box that just says "peens" written on the side in Sharpie,
and
and
she
they're like,
took
"All
it-
right, digging through,
Well, she
let's see
took it-
what we got."
Well, I
No, she took
pictured
it
like
to-
this nice little case that you get to choose.
No, that's what I was trying to say. Okay, so she takes it to Finn Whitrock and has him choose which one he feels is the most representative of his.
Wait,
penis.
wait. Whoa. I feel like I'm Peter Griffin right now. Whoa. The most representative of his actual. So this man
That's
has
what
to
she said. I don't
glue
know if that's
a
exactly
penis
the truth.
that is basically his penis onto his penis.
Or that he felt the most comfortable with.
How is this different than just have? I can't believe, like, because someone's gonna know whether or not he is just like, yes, this is definitely the most representative penis of my penis.
I was gonna say, Meg,
Two hands.
you know that they're gonna size up.
I know. Like, I want to be on this podcast, this live stream, just to talk about the mechanics
You can be in the chat. You're
of
not allowed.
stuffing a prosthetic penis. Like, doesn't it have? How in depth do they go to like mold it to himself, or is it really just a cardboard box and she's just swinging dicks around? Like, yeah, this one looks good.
No, it's a serious thing. They're taking it seriously.
Well, of course they are, but I don't
Uh-huh.
work on that movie set or that TV show. I don't give a shit. It's not my job. Penis wrangler is not my job. But if I had $1 million,
Oh my
Excuse me, I think they prefer genital artists.
I was just gonna ask, what title do you actually put on your resume for something like that?
genital gatherer. Just bring them to me. Yeah, my mental image versus what Aaron is talking about was so completely different. Because yeah, I just see a box of rubber dicks, and she's like,
Well, no,
No,
that's the
this
way she
doesn't
kind
look
of
right.
described it, was that she did have like an actual box of prosthetic penises to choose from.
"Does this match the skin tone?"
Yes, and he got to choose.
Just
the one
trying
he
it
wanted.
on.
It's like when you get a crown at the dentist and they have to hold up the colors, but except, lower.
Wear this mold for a week and then come back and we'll get you a perfectly fitted one. This
Yeah.
is the weirdest thing in the world to
But
me. I'm
don't bite anything hot or too
Sebastian Stan did
crunchy.
the same thing in the Pam and Tommy one. There's
Well,
a
I'm
whole
sure
scene where his
Marky
penis
Mark did one
talks.
for Boogie Nights.
Oh yeah, that's definitely
Yeah,
prosthetic.
it definitely was.
Marky Mark fucking wishes. No, he doesn't. That's too long. That's too much, you guys.
I don't know. This is a thing that happens. I think actually I saw an interview. It actually might have been with Finn Whitrock talking about this, because they were talking about it again and saying, "Oh, you had your Boogie Nights moment." Where you had your prosthetic. And I think in that one or somewhere, someone has said, I think Mark Wahlberg took that home with him. I could be wrong, okay? But
Did Chris Pine have a prosthetic penis in his movie?
I have no
How
idea.
many
I know Bradley
penises-
Cooper
how
didn't.
much
I know Bradley
full
Cooper
frontal
didn't in
is
Nightmare Alley.
This is what I need to know. This is the conspiracy that Hollywood has been feeding us.
Well, it's also the body devil thing that a lot of women have. So a lot of, like in Pretty
How?
Woman, the whole when she's getting dressed in the beginning, that's not Julia Roberts' body.
Yeah, it was actually me. But no, just kidding.
Good work, Tanya.
Little known fact, thigh model. No, just kidding. Sorry.
No, and what's so funny about it is the scene where you see his penis is literally about 2 seconds of seeing his penis. So it's like there's all these reaction videos out there too. If
Not if you pause it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, there are paused images of it. But
Of
I just
course
put that on
there
because I'm
are.
like, don't get your hopes up. That's not real.
This whole movie isn't just a dick, or movie show isn't just a dick constantly swinging at the way, with Sarah Paulson occasionally walking by the screen.
Oh my god! Don't give Ryan Murphy any ideas, okay?
Sorry to
would
me
do
to
this.
spoil the show for you guys if you haven't seen it.
Oh man, he would do that. It's a very, very beautiful movie show to watch. It's just a penis and a person walking by a penis.
Just like a grandfather clock.
That's something that Ryan Murphy would do. So anyway, so join us for that live stream.
I just never thought Karl Marx and grandfather clock dong would be, in the same hour.
Oh man.
Karl Marx said, "Do what you love." So freaking penis wrangler might be someone's joy. Okay, that is an art. That person is living Karl Marx's dream.
Exactly. I mean, that really makes
Not
it
mine, but Karl
connects you
Marx's.
to your, yeah.
Bringing it around.
Okay, so anyway,
I'm
and
so sick.
okay, I still want you to come on the show, Finn. I promise I won't ask
Please
you
bring
any
your
more.
prosthetic
Oh,
penis.
please. Oh, Meg, I was just trying to say, I will not, because I know you know about this podcast. So I will not make you bring your prosthetic
Please,
penis.
Finn, give
I won't
us
even
the
talk
number
about it.
of the makeup and special effects lady on Ratchet. We spent the past 10 minutes talking about his prosthetic penis. The horse has left the barn, Erin.
Oh, I know it has. But I'm trying to wrangle it back in so we can stop.
Like a penis in a box.
God. I know. I'm the one who first brought it up, so it's my fault, but still. So
You're also the one who sent me that video of him humping the floor. So,
yes. And I would only share that because he shared it on his social media. So I'm like, okay, it's fair game.
that's the only Finn Ritrock I know. Or this story and floor humping.
We're gonna do a whole podcast episode on that video sometime soon.
What's your favorite moment? 1 minute, 13.2 seconds.
Okay, now before we do actually hit that 2-hour mark, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. So that'll be kicking off the Ryan Murphy thing. So pump up the volumes the next episode, and then our next live stream, of course, is Ratchet. So that will be I'm so looking forward to that. So until next time, remember, it's a fandom thing. Black Lives Matter and stop Asian hate. In just a moment, I was trying to think of the best word to close, because all the other ones I've closed out with a line, and I can think of one. Anyway. Thank you, Carla and Bex, for joining us along, and other people that have watched and other people that watch later. Thank you so much. And we're going to close out again with my beautiful, cheesy Ryan Murphy thing. There's no prosthetic penises in this.
No
That's why
penises
Car-
were harmed.
that's why
in the
Carla didn't
making
like
of
it.
This exit.
That's why Carla doesn't like this. My Ryan Murphy promo.
No, the movie.
That's what I was talking about was my Ryan Murphy. Oh, that's why she doesn't like Office Space, though? Okay. So anyway, bye, everybody. Good night.